Hey folks, welcome to another Triple T Thursday. For those just joining us, that's tools, tips, and talk, where we'll discuss info for the knife maker. In today's episode, we're going to continue our intermediate series and build the Damascus Bowie knife. Today we're going to tackle one of the hardest things the thing that people normally have problems with, and that's slotting and fitting the guard. So we're going to do that. We're going to square up the handle to the guard today and drill the pin. Definitely one more episode after this, maybe two, but I think we'll try to wrap it up in next week's episode. Let's go down to the table and take a look.
So folks, before we get started, someone asked me a question in comments about tempering, and I realized I didn't really talk much about tempering in the last episode. So this was tempered at 400 degrees twice, but wanted to just talk about tempering. And some people just think 400 degrees, 2 hours twice is like the gospel. It really depends on what the hardness of your blade is. Because this one came out at 65 HRC, okay, out of the quench. So your temper temperature is to bring down that hardness to a good level. You want to bring your hardness down, depending on the knife. For this kind of knife, I like them about 59. If this was a bushcraft knife, I'd probably bring it a little lower because you're going to be doing chopping and that kind of thing. If it was a kitchen knife, I'd probably want it 60 or 61. So it depends on the knife, but it also depends on your starting HRC. If this only hardened to 63, I probably wouldn't temper it quite at 400. It might be 380 or 375. And of course, there's more science to it if you have an actual HRC tester. For me, when I do the temper, I always use, this is just 2 pieces of angle iron that I've put 2 bolts in, and I've welded them on this side here. And I put the knife in for 2 reasons. It will keep it nice and straight in the temper, because it is possible to develop a warp in the temper even though it was straight going in. The other thing this does is it regulates the temperature. Because I use my kitchen oven and not my kiln, just because I'm too lazy to let it cool down, the mass here will heat up and cool down slower because there's so much mass here. So that regulates the temperature in the blade as well. So that's just a bit about tempering, folks. So now let's talk about the sanding of this blade. So I've sanded this blade to 220, okay, and it looks really good, no issues with the blade whatsoever. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to etch it again. And the reason I like to do that with Damascus is just in case there's any places that still has decarb, they're going to show up white. If you don't get them now, and you go up grits, then you got to go all the way back down. I actually did this even before I hand sanded, and I could see that there was decarb here because I didn't actually regrind this area, the false edge, and there was some decarb here because I didn't want to grind too much on this because I didn't want to remove my step. So I just did a really light grinding after the quench, just to remove some decarb. So I've sanded those areas really well. Now we're going to put it in the etch and make sure we got them all. So here it is, fresh out of the acid. There's just a little area like right here, I'll go this way, that's just, you can see a little bit white. So I'll just take that to make sure I get that really well on the next sanding, but nothing that I'm really worried about right now. It looks really good. Okay, let's get to the rest of the hand sanding, and then we'll do the guard. I got this all sanded to 800 grit. So it's all ready. I'll do the final hand sanding after I put my maker's mark on it and right before ready to etch. It's important you get it to that high of a grit because you don't want to be sanding it after we fit the guard, because then you'll actually have a little gap from the amount of sanding that you do. So you want to get it almost exactly to where you want it. So the 1000 is just going to be almost a polish. So now we're going to talk about probably one of the most complicated parts, which is slotting and fitting the guard. So I do have a step here. It's about 5 thousandths on either side. Let's measure right here. And you'll see it's less than 1/8 of an inch. So that's a bit of a pain because most of the files that you use are about 1/8 of an inch. So that's a bit of a pain. It would have been nicer if that was just over 1/8 of an inch and I could have used 1/8 of an inch drills and files, but oh well, we'll make do. So the first thing we're going to do is just get our material. So we're going to use brass for this, and the reason I'm using 3/8 inch thick brass is because when the guard is on here, what I want this to do, I want the guard to pretty much be even. The guard might be just a tiny bit raised because it might kind of swoop up just a little bit, but it's going to be pretty close to here. I'll leave an extra bit here that I'm going to grind off later. And then around here, I'm going to make, like, part of the finger choil will be taking the guard up here, and then it's going to come down like this. That's just how I like to do my guards. This might be a little bit wider, but you get the point. So it's going to look something like that, and then this will kind of come to a point here. So we know that the tang is this wide here, so what I'm going to do is just mark here and here. That's where the tang is going to go, and we're going to measure this. Okay, so that's where it's going to be. I'll measure this guy. Okay, calipers, if you don't have a set of calipers, calipers are necessary. You must get calipers. I'm going to go over to the drill press and I'm going to show you a little trick to get this lined up. All right, so let's talk about how we're going to get our holes drilled that we're then going to go back and file. One of the very first things you need to do is get your holes all lined up perfectly. If you get them off, then it's really easy to get this thing kind of crooked. So this is a really good trick. You put a fence here, and I've just clamped it. So I clamped this is just a piece of aluminum, but you can use anything. I've clamped this here so that I can drill a hole and then just slide this piece down. Then I know every one of these holes is going to be perfectly in line. Second, I'm using a center drill. Okay, if you're not familiar with a center drill, these kind of drill bits, they do not drill centers very well. That's why they'll walk a little bit and you have to use a punch to get a center.
Remember folks, if you need center drills or any other knife making supplies, go check out Maritime Knife Supply. They have everything you need. There's a link down in the description.
So I didn't really need to set the fence up again because I have these pilot holes, but I put it there anyway. Now we're just going to drill them through.
I started this with a round needle file and then switched to a square one just to make sure I had the square corners. This took forever, and I'm going to go another route and I'll show you guys how.
So you can tell that filing was going to take a long time. So what I've done is I put an end mill, this is a 16th inch end mill, into my drill press. Yes, this is not a good idea. You do not want to do this on extended periods. This kind of chuck is not meant for lateral pressure. That's what collets are for in a mill. But in a pinch, in brass, okay, this will actually help you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it on. I've got it on the very highest speed it will go. And very slowly, with the fence, I'm going to put the quill down just to about 30 thousandths. And I'm going to push this along just to take some of that material out. And then I might move the table a little bit and just keep going. Again,
I'm not advocating doing this. It's an idea. You can do it, especially on brass. I would not do this on steel. So there it is after that operation. You can see it's pretty smooth inside and pretty even. So that works out really well. Again, use at your own risk. It can damage your drill press if you do it too much. And I would only recommend it on brass with small end mills. So use at your own risk. I'm going to use a little needle file. Okay, so here it is. It's pretty snug, but it does go on. You'll see that we got a bit of a gap there, but we're going to fix that, and I'll show you how. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is take our knife and put it in the vise in some leather. And this has got to be really tight, hence the leather, so you don't damage it. And make sure you're not hitting the vise down here. Don't worry, pressure's not going to damage your knife going this way. Okay, so now we're going to put our guard on, and it's a good idea to, I'm going to sand this lightly before I get it on there because I've already got a notch there, so I want this relatively clean. Okay, so pretty clean now. We're going to put it on, and make sure you put it on the right direction. All right. So now what I built this little, whatever you call it, hammering device that fits over the tang and this little kind of fake guard so I don't damage this. Okay, then I'm just going to put this over and I'm going to hit it a bunch of times, and that's going to imprint the ricasso onto the guard and actually smash it in there and create kind of an indent. I just pulled that out of the vise, and you can see that there are no gaps. And that's because the ricasso is actually indented down into the guard. When I remove the guard, you're going to see an imprint all the way around. And that's good because it'll go on the same way every time. To take it off, it's quite easy. We're going to do the opposite. We're going to just loosely have it just so that the knife isn't hitting the jaws. Then we're going to take a little piece of leather, put it underneath so we're not going to damage the top of the guard, and then I hold the bottom of the knife and give it a little whack. And there you can see how the guard is imprinted onto the knife. And I can even see the step in there. Very cool.
Now it's time to move on to the handle. I'm cutting up this block of maple burl given to me by one of my patrons, Evan Sprouse.
Now that we fit the guard, that is by far usually the hardest part of any hidden tang knife and what people fear the most, but we got that done. Now we're going to start with the handle. So we're not going to do anything else with the guard until we get the handle slotted and profiled. So I've got this piece that you saw me cut here, just this piece of maple burl, which is beautiful. And now, first off, I'm going to check, this is the template for my handle. So I want it about here. you notice it's a little off from my original angle, which is fine. They usually do have to change them a little bit. So it's going to be about there. So what I usually do is put this on here and then figure out the angle that I need to cut the wood, the front of the wood on. So fit your handle first. Okay, so then it's going to be about here. Right about there. So then I'll take that off. And this doesn't need to be perfect. I'll draw this angle on the wood here. So now I know I need to take that angle off. So let's go do that.
So this just came in the mail today, and I am super excited. I know what this is. This is from Ben Butler at Butler Built LLC. So let's open it up and I'll show you guys what this is. Oh, first off, that is a beautiful hat. And Ben, I don't know if you know how much I love camo, but that will definitely be used. That might be my new go-to hat. Let's see. It says, Dennis, enjoyed this thing, man. It's been a pleasure to build it for you. Awesome. Accessories start here. All right, let's carefully open this up.
Well, folks, the batteries died on my microphone, so I can't take you through the unboxing, but this is my new apron from Ben Butler. Let's go take a look.
Well, folks, here it is. I love the look. The black with the brown and the copper. I love the look of it. Just amazing, beautiful color choices, Ben. So it feels really comfy. Ben's got a bunch of different styles, but I chose the one, just to back up a bit, I chose the short one because I don't want a really long apron. I live in California and it's pretty hot here, so I don't want a ton of material. It's also why I chose not to get pockets. I'm not a big pocket guy, so I don't want pockets here. There's one tiny pocket here, which is totally fine. Ben also added, if you guys can see, for content creators like myself, is a place for you to hook your microphone, and there's a hole here and behind this pocket so you can put your mic. Very cool idea, so I love that. It feels really nice. It's still a little stiff because it's brand new leather, but it'll definitely loosen up, and I just love it. So great job, Ben. Thanks so much for making this for me, and I will be wearing it all the time, especially now because my mic is integrated into the apron, so I will just be putting the apron on whenever I want to use the mic. I'll spin around here. You can see the clasps. It's got quick disconnects on this side to get in and out of it. So awesome apron. If you're looking for an apron, go see Ben at butlerbuilt.us. I'll put a link down in the description. Thanks, Ben. I love it.
Okay, so we're ready to drill the hole for the tang. So the way I do this is I get my vise here and I put the block in it. And now I'm just aligning my drill bit with this line, and if it's not accurate, then I'll just keep doing that, dropping the drill bit and making sure it's in line with this. Okay, and I'll do the first one, I'll do one side and then I'll do the other side. So I always do the outside holes, and then I'll drill holes in the center to meet them. You'll notice I have a small drill bit. I don't have a lot of depth on my drill press. It's a cheap drill press, so I usually come in with a short one, and then I'll come back with a long one like this and make sure that I get it to the right depth, and I'll show you guys that after. So now I'm just going to do the other side.
After we've drilled all the holes, we're just going to use the drill bit and kind of connect them and remove the material in between.
So there it is, fit. You notice there's a little gap right here, so I just need to change the angle slightly here, which is fine. One thing we do want to look for, I'll zoom the camera out a little bit here, is to make sure that it's aligned here. It's always going to be a little bit off, but you just want to make sure that it's relatively straight, and not like it's coming in on a really brutal angle and you're losing part of this. But this one looks pretty good. And I'm going to show you how to square this up now that it's on there. So I'm just going to hammer on the guard again, and then I'm going to just go to the grinder and just take a little bit of this off. I might even move to sandpaper just to get this angle perfect all the way around. And then we'll go to the next step. Okay, now it's time to square this up. So we've got it placed on there exactly where it's going to go. Now I'm on the surface plate or a tile, whatever you want to use. I have a height gauge. This really is the easiest way to do this. You can do it with calipers. It's just much harder. So what I'm doing is I've got a 1, 2, 3 block just with some tape on it, protect it. I've got the ricasso. Make sure you got the ricasso and not the bevel. I've got the ricasso on here, and now I'm just looking right now just for the lowest point. Okay, so I'm going to just go around. It's actually the highest point, but it's about here, because I want the most width I can get. So then I'm going to lock this and just scribe a mark all the way around. Because this is flat, the 1, 2, 3 block is flat, and I'm tracing all around it, I'm going to get a perfectly square block. There. So now you can see I've got lines. Oh, I missed a spot. I've got lines marked all the way around it, and that's what I'm going to grind to, and that will get my handle perfectly square to the knife.
If you don't have one of these cleaning sticks, they're super useful. You can also get these at Maritime Knife Supply.
Now we've got the block all squared up. Now, because we've ground the sides, we have to redraw our tang. So what I've done is just mark the where the tang is on the slot is on the side, and then just put it on there, and then redraw our tang. And this is very important because we do not want to grind into the hole where the tang is. Okay, so now we can redraw what we want our profile to be. Okay, and our tang is nice and centered.
I know I'm showing the small wheel attached on my 2x72. If you don't have that, go get a set of drum sanders for your drill press. Those work great. There's a link in the description for those.
Now that we got the profile on the handle, we're going to switch back to the guard for a little bit. So what we're going to do is continue this curve, something like that, and then bring this down there.
I couldn't grind the guard here without touching the handle, so I had to take it off and grind it separately. This is where those drum sanders for your drill press are really useful.
Alright, so we got our guard shaped. If we look at it from here, it looks pretty good. Need to finish the top of it, but what I want to do now is show you guys how to do the pin. Because that is the reason we've kept everything square, and you want to be careful not to put any contour on this until you get the pinhole. So, for this kind of knife, I like to have relatively small pins, so I'm going to use an 1/8 inch pin. I only ever put one pin in hidden tang knives like this. Obviously you want it as close to the center of the tang as you can, and I like to put it between here and here. So I'm going to put it right there. So what I'm going to do here, and I've said this on many other videos, I'm going to put this in the drill press. I'm going to put an 1/8 inch bit. I'm going to go down and I'm going to touch the tang. Just touch it. Then I will take this off. I'll drill this separately all the way through, so that I've got a mark here, and then I'll drill this an 1/8, and then I'm going to go up to 3/16 and I'll drill a 3/16 hole. The reason for that is when you put this in, because sometimes you need to sand the top of this or sand this or whatever you need to do, and if you make your hole exactly right to fit the pin, sometimes it can pull it away from the guard. So this way there's a little play into it. You'll see when I show you how we actually glue this up, we're going to force this together, and you want a little space. And it doesn't matter because the epoxy will fill the rest of that 3/16 hole. So it'll be plenty strong. Let's go drill this.
The reason you don't want to try to drill through the tang is that'll flex your drill bit, and it'll actually widen the hole in the wood. And that's how you get those black rings around your pinholes, and that's not good.
So here it is. Let's give it a shot, make sure everything fits. I just cut a little piece of brass pin here. Works perfectly. Alright, so we're going to end it here, guys. Next week, we're going to do the finish on the Damascus. That's quite an interesting part of the video. And then we're going to shape the handle, and we might be finished next week. Thanks, folks. We'll see you on the next one.